The lunch rush had barely begun when a man wearing faded jeans, worn work boots, and a simple baseball cap pushed open the door of a small roadside diner that carried his family's name on the sign outside. Nobody looked up. Nobody recognized him. That was exactly how he wanted it. For 3 years he had secretly visited different branches of the restaurant chain he had built from a single struggling diner into one of the fastest-growing family restaurants in the state. He had learned long ago that polished reports could hide ugly truths, but ordinary conversations could never lie. On that bright Tuesday afternoon, he expected to eat a quiet meal and leave with another notebook full of observations. Instead, before he even sat down, he heard a conversation behind the counter that stopped him cold and changed the lives of everyone inside the building forever. Before we continue this unforgettable story, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to Echoverse Story. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories that remind us humanity still exists. The man was named Adrian Mercer, a widowed father raising his 8-year-old daughter after losing his wife in a tragic highway accident 5 years earlier. The success everyone admired had come at a price few people understood. While magazines celebrated his business achievements, they never saw the lonely evenings when he helped his daughter with homework, cooked simple dinners, or sat quietly outside her bedroom after she had fallen asleep, wondering if he was doing enough as both a father and a businessman. Those private moments reminded him why he had started the company in the first place. His dream had never been to become rich. He wanted every employee to earn an honest living while serving meals that made strangers feel like family. Somewhere along the way, as the company expanded into dozens of locations, he feared that dream might have become buried beneath profits, paperwork, and ambitious managers. Adrian quietly chose a booth near the window where sunlight poured across the polished wooden table. The diner looked clean, but something felt strangely different. The smiles seemed forced. The laughter that usually filled family restaurants was missing. Employees hurried past each other without making eye contact, and customers appeared uncomfortable even though the food arrived quickly. A restaurant could be spotless and still feel cold, and Adrian noticed that invisible difference immediately. Experience had taught him that unhappy employees rarely created happy customers. As he pretended to study the menu, voices drifted from the kitchen entrance where 2 workers believed no customer could hear them. One voice sounded exhausted, carrying the weight of someone who had stopped expecting life to become easier. The other spoke with quiet concern. They discussed a dishwasher named Marlo, an older woman who worked double shifts despite painful arthritis because she was raising her 2 young grandchildren after her daughter disappeared years earlier. They mentioned that management had denied her request for one afternoon off so she could attend the younger child's school award ceremony. They also whispered that leftover food was being thrown away every night while employees struggling to feed their own families were warned that taking even a single bread roll home would result in immediate termination. Every sentence struck Adrian harder than the last. Those policies violated everything he believed his company represented. He remained perfectly still, forcing himself not to react. Anger could wait. Understanding had to come first. If these stories were true, then someone between the corporate office and this diner had quietly replaced compassion with fear. The waitress eventually approached his table with a polite but tired smile. Her name tag read Nina Holloway, and although she greeted every customer respectfully, her eyes revealed the exhaustion of someone carrying burdens she refused to share. Adrian noticed tiny details most people overlooked. Her shoes were carefully repaired instead of replaced. Her apron had been stitched by hand. She apologized twice for things that were not her fault before even taking his order. Those habits usually belonged to people who had been criticized far too often. As she walked away, Adrian watched her stop beside an elderly customer eating alone. She gently refilled his coffee before he even asked and quietly adjusted the salt shaker closer to his trembling hand. There was genuine kindness in every movement. It reminded Adrian of the values his late wife had insisted should always come before profit margins. Great restaurants, she often said, were remembered because of how they made people feel, not simply because of what they served. The lunch crowd continued growing, filling nearly every table. Families celebrated birthdays, construction workers laughed over sandwiches, nurses grabbed quick meals between shifts, and traveling salespeople typed on laptops while sipping coffee. From a distance, everything looked successful. Yet Adrian kept noticing small cracks beneath the surface. Employees flinched whenever the branch manager walked through the dining room. Conversations suddenly stopped whenever he appeared. Fear had become part of the workplace culture. The manager, Grant Hollis, carried himself with the confidence of someone who believed authority meant intimidation. He corrected staff members loudly enough for customers to hear and rarely used words like thank you or please. When a teenage busboy accidentally dropped a spoon, Grant scolded him harshly over a mistake that cost almost nothing but embarrassed the young employee in front of dozens of guests. Adrian quietly wrote another note inside the small notebook hidden beneath the menu. Moments later, an elderly woman struggled to stand after finishing her meal. Before anyone else reacted, Nina hurried across the dining room, helped her with gentle patience, and even carried her shopping bags to the front door despite being responsible for several other tables. The grateful customer smiled with tears in her eyes. Grant noticed. Instead of thanking Nina for showing compassion, he criticized her for leaving other customers waiting nearly 2 minutes. Adrian lowered his eyes toward his untouched coffee, hiding the disappointment growing heavier inside his heart. Success without humanity meant failure in disguise. As the afternoon sunlight stretched across the floor, Adrian realized this visit would become far more important than any inspection he had ever conducted. He had entered hoping to evaluate food quality and customer service. Instead, he had uncovered something much deeper, a workplace where kindness survived only because ordinary employees refused to let it disappear completely. And before the lunch rush was over, he would witness one more conversation behind that counter, one that would reveal just how far this diner had drifted from the dream he had built for families like his own. The afternoon sun slowly softened as customers began leaving one by one, but Adrian remained quietly seated, pretending to finish his meal while observing everything around him. What happened next confirmed every fear he had carried into the diner. Behind the counter, Grant ordered employees to throw away trays of perfectly good food rather than allow struggling workers to take any home. He warned everyone that compassion was bad for business, and the room fell silent. Adrian looked around and saw tired faces filled with disappointment instead of hope. In that heartbreaking moment, he understood that the greatest problem was not poor management, it was that good people had been taught to believe they had no voice. Adrian finally stood, removed his baseball cap, and calmly asked everyone to pause for just a moment. As the staff turned toward him, confusion quickly spread across the room. Grant impatiently demanded to know who he thought he was. Adrian quietly reached into his wallet, placed his company identification on the counter, and introduced himself as the founder and CEO of the restaurant chain. The color drained from Grant's face. The employees stared in complete disbelief. The man they had assumed was an ordinary customer had been listening to every word from the moment he walked through the door. Instead of shouting or humiliating anyone, Adrian spoke with remarkable calm. He explained that a restaurant's true success could never be measured only by sales reports or profit margins. It had to be measured by the way people were treated when no executives were watching. He praised Nina for her compassion, thanked the teenage busboy for working hard despite constant criticism, and walked into the kitchen to personally shake Marlowe's hand. When he learned she had missed her grandson's school ceremony because of work, his eyes filled with tears. He apologized to her, not as a CEO protecting a company, but as a father who understood the pain of missing precious moments that could never be replaced. That very afternoon, Grant was removed from his position pending a full investigation, and a complete review of every branch was announced. New policies guaranteed that safe leftover food would be donated or shared responsibly, emergency family leave would be respected, and every manager would be evaluated not only on financial performance but also on how they treated their teams. Adrian also created a family assistance fund in memory of his late wife, ensuring that employees facing unexpected hardships would never have to struggle alone. Several months later, Adrian returned to the same diner with his young daughter. This time the building felt completely different. Laughter echoed through the dining room. Employees greeted one another with genuine smiles. Marlo proudly showed pictures of her grandchildren, who were both thriving in school. Nina had been promoted to assistant manager because kindness had finally become something the company rewarded instead of punished. Customers noticed the difference too, and the diner became one of the highest-rated locations in the entire chain, not because of expensive renovations, but because respect had returned to the workplace. Watching his daughter laugh with the staff, Adrian realized that his greatest achievement had never been building a successful business. It had been protecting the values that inspired him to build it in the first place. Wealth could open new restaurants, but only compassion could build a family. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes kindness still matters, and subscribe to Echo Verse Story for more emotional and inspiring stories.